Hello, 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 beautiful people and litigators. Court is now in session. So I have had to record this video, you guys, like 3 times because I've been having audio issues. So let's hope it works this time, okay? Today we are going to talk about Dr. Carolina Ornelas. Dr. Carolina Ornelas is the doctor that failed to protect Shanquella. She failed her duty in her profession, in my opinion. She failed her duty to take Shanquella to the hospital. And we're even going to hear from an expert, Dr. Valero, a forensic medical expert who appeared on one of the local YouTubers, Donnie's, I think her name is Donnie's page. And he is going to talk about some of the failures that she has done. But before we get to that, let's look at this woman's profile. Let's find out who she is, where she's employed, what's her level of experience, because there's a lot of concerns and failures that she did in this case. Okay, so first thing I think it's important to look at is her LinkedIn. But one thing you'll notice about her LinkedIn is she removed her photo. So she is in hiding. She has been trying to remove her identity from online because she knows a lot of people are looking for her because of her failures in this case, you guys. And she also has made her Twitter private. But let's just look at who she is, where she's employed, so forth. So first thing we can see is that she's a physician, entrepreneur, CCO, and co-founder. Los Cabos, Baja California Sur, Mexico. We know that because that's where this tragedy occurred. She is employed with American Medical Center, AMC, and she went to the University of Guadalajara. Now, I want to look at her job background because it's really going to tell us who she is, what's her level of experience. So we can see she's only been employed for the American Medical Center for only a year and 3 months. So she hasn't even been there that long. But simultaneously, she's also employed at the Institute Mexicano del Seguro Social. And she only works there part-time. And she's been working there since July 2021 till now, still working there. And she's been there for 1 year and 6 months. So she has 2 different jobs already. Now she has a third job that she's working. All of these jobs she's working at the same time. Okay, she's got 3 jobs right now. Working, the third one is Medico, and she's been working there since January 2020, and she's still currently employed there. And she's been at that job for 3 years. She also worked Supervision del Campos Clínicos, and she worked there for only a year. She started working there March 2020 and stopped working February 2021. She was only there for a year. Then she worked Chief Communications Officer. Interesting. She was a Chief Communications Officer from April 2018 to March 2020 for 2 years only. And then she worked February 2017 to January 2018 at Médico Pasante de Servicio Social at a hospital. So she was a doctor then. And she also worked at another hospital January 2016 to December 2016. But one of the red flags that I notice about her pattern, her history of employment, is that she doesn't stay at her jobs for that long. That's a red flag. Any employer who's looking to hire a new employee, if they see someone with her background, her level of background, where she's only working for these jobs for 1 year, 2 years, 1 year, the longest she's ever been at a job has been only 3 years. But these new jobs, again, 1 year, 1 year. This woman has a pattern of leaving jobs. And that is an issue that I have with her. Is she leaving these jobs or is she getting fired from these jobs? There's a red flag there that there is a history with this woman, in my opinion, that could make you infer or formulate an opinion that she might have already had a history of misconduct. Because how is she only at these jobs for very short periods of time? I have an issue with that. Another thing I have is this woman has been a physician since 2016. She knows better. She overlooked her medical expertise in this tragedy and listened to laypersons, individuals who lack any form of medical experience. Number one. Number two, she listened to them telling her it was alcohol poisoning, and she overlooked her medical expertise to, number one, check to see if you could smell alcohol on her to corroborate, which in this case, she probably more likely didn't smell alcohol, which didn't corroborate this allegation. And then again, she failed her medical expertise. Finally, Nazir stated on the social media, his social media live, when he was talking about, he was innocent, declaring his innocence. He said that the doctor was the one that pointed out the fact that Shanquella had a knot on her head. That's number 3 red flag. That knot on Shanquella's head should have told that doctor there was something more severe than just medical or just alcohol poisoning. Finally, she listens to the advisements of these laypersons to give Shanquella CPR and an IV when she should have utilized her medical expertise. The way this woman behaved was contrary to how a doctor would have behaved in same or similar circumstances, which to me screams immorality and unethical conduct that occurred in this tragedy. I can't think of any other explanation. Can you? For Carolina Ornelas? This woman right here you see on the screen? Now let's take a look at her Twitter. Her Twitter, unfortunately, guys, is now private. So all I have left to show you of her Twitter are screenshots. That's all I have left, y'all, because it's private now. And it's gone. And all she put is private. And the reason why she has done that is because people started looking for her and tracked her down and have been harassing her. And she has pretty much made her Twitter private. And she started blocking different people who she was not familiar with. So this post here that she posted this on her Twitter October 31st, 2022. That was at least 2 days after the tragedy that related to Shanquella. And I think the words that she uses here are very pivotal to me. I'm just going to give my humble opinion, and you're welcome to make your own opinion about this post as well. But I think it's very significant. First thing she says is, as we gain some experience, it is common to want to go back in time and advise me of the past. That sounds like someone who is looking back on their past behaviors and past choices, past failures, and wishing they could have made different choices, wishes they could have advised the past self to make better decisions. This sounds like a woman in deep regret for the choices she made. And if you apply it to this tragedy, she could have been reflecting on how she literally gave into her unethical choices, in this case, to listen to the Cabo 6, whether it was for monetary gain, which is what my opinion is, or to cover up a death to make the villas in Mexico look good. But deep down, there's that human nature inside that feels a level of regret and wishes that she could have advised herself to overlook or to override the desire to give into the unethical conduct that she did. Then the second sentence says, but there are other less recognized times when the self seems to once again give us the necessary lesson. Less recognized sounds to me like someone who ignores the opportunity for change. But there are other less recognized times when the self seems to once again give us the necessary lesson. It means someone who overlooks the opportunity to make good choices, overlooks the opportunity to learn the essential, important lessons in a situation, and allow themselves to continue down a path of destruction. This sentence is very pivotal because it's saying this person ignores her good conscience and opportunity to learn from things because she doesn't recognize the opportunities for change. Sounds to me like someone who's in regret, reflecting on, I wish I could have advised myself to make better decisions. But at the same time, you have to look at it from the other perspective. This tweet was October 31st, only 2 days after Shanquella passed away. We have to look at what was going on that time during that time frame. During that time frame, the authorities and everyone in Mexico that was related to this case were making excuses. They were telling the parents, "Oh, it was an accident. Oh, it was alcohol poisoning. Don't worry, you need to hire an investigator." They were telling Shanquella's parents to hire an investigator and that there was no foul play. If you look at it that way, and if it's something, it's custom, I guess it's like a custom or a practice there in Mexico for them to bury these tragedies and deaths of women under the mud, which is what we have seen on a video that I did share before that's happening right now in Mexico with currently a Mexican citizen. A Mexican woman was brutally beaten, unalived, found on the side of the road with bruises all over her body. And the authorities lied, made up an excuse and said it was alcohol poisoning. This alcohol poisoning excuse sounds to me like the staple reason that the Mexican authorities make when a woman is killed in Mexico. So with that being said, you could also look at this post as not even having anything to do with Shanquella, but just looking at the words, guys. These words are very powerful. It sounds like a woman who's in regret, wishing she would have advised the old self, the past self, to the 2 days ago self, back on October 29th self, to make better decisions. But there are other less recognized times when that self seems to once again give us the necessary lesson, meaning you don't recognize the opportunity to make good choices. So unfortunately, because of that, now you have to learn the necessary lesson that you should have learned several times ago. Okay. She said, it reminds me a lot of Harry. Sometimes you are the one who saves yourself. And that is true. It means you are responsible for your own decisions. So you made the bed, Dr. Carolina, and now you're going to have to lie in it. The only issue that I have, though, is based upon some of the information that I've seen out there, allegedly, the only punishment Dr. Carolina will really get, possibly, is a fine, guys. She's still employed. That means she's still going to keep her job and probably only get some type of fine for what she did. It is just unacceptable how they handle misconduct in Mexico based upon that's just what I've seen out there. It's just an allegation. I'm not sure, guys, if it's true or not. But that's just what I've seen out there, is that allegedly she's only going to be fined, which is unacceptable. This woman should be, if she was in America, she would have lost her license as a doctor to practice. She would have been sued by the family for malpractice. It would have been all kinds of stuff. Okay. Now let's just take a look at some of her prior posts, because she had prior posts on there. It doesn't have a relevance to Shanquella, but it's interesting to look at just to see what kind of person she is, to get to know who she is, because a lot of times we post things and it is a telling factor that we can look at to find out who people are, what their thought process is, stuff like that. So here she posts And these posts, let me stop. These posts, guys, were still days after Shanquella died. This was post November 8th. Okay. It says losing hope in people is losing hope. Hope in yourself. Losing hope in people is losing hope. Hope in yourself. Interesting. This sounds like someone who is. It sounds like someone who is not in a good place because they've lost hope in people. I wonder what really is going on with her because this is after Shanquella passed away. What really happened? And the thing is, we won't know until we really get into they release the details. But losing hope in people, was she maybe encouraged by the authorities, maybe the law enforcement that came to investigate this, to fabricate a story that was written on the police report? It's a question. Was she losing hope in that fact that she felt pressured into it? Who knows? Who knows? Just an opinion we're thinking about. This post could have nothing to do with Shanquella, y'all. I'm just looking at it from different perspectives. Y'all know I like to read everything into everything. November 8th, 2022 says, it costs little and is much gained when you give at least one compliment acknowledgement a day to those around you. Now, this post just has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It sounds like somebody who just gone on about their life. Like nothing ever happened. Because notice, November 8th, you guys, nothing had exploded by now. No, this case was not in the media by then. I don't believe the fight tape had gone released. So she pretty much can go on about her life like nothing ever happened. Like a regular old day, back to the same routine. Because she literally thought in her mind she got away with it. The authorities were saying it was an accident. Everybody was going about their day. You know, nobody really was caring about the case except for Shanquella's family, who was hurt and traumatized by the fact that their daughter was unalived and they don't know why. And they know something's wrong. And they have to wait around with no answers because they're being lied to. So this post right here, to me, it costs little and much gain to give at least one compliment acknowledgement a day to those around you. That sounds like somebody who just gone about their life, forgot about whatever they did, and moved on. Not a care in the world, which to me is disturbing. It makes me think that there is some type of systematic kind of way that Mexico operates. And if Americans die in Mexico, it seems like they try to hide it, bury it away, make some excuse about it so that it's not publicized and so that they can continue to keep tourists coming there. So if that's kind of a customary kind of practice of burying these kind of tragedies under the mud, that's kind of the normality of how things function, then of course, yes, she probably did go on about her life because there's nothing significant of it, you know? You just have to look at how people, how societies operate. They all have different ways of operating. November 16th, 2022, and November 12th. These are days after Shanquella's death. She's on November 12th, she says, one of the coolest compliments that can be given is, I admire you. Again, someone who has just moved on. She not a thought or care in the world, y'all. Shanquella is not even a memory to her. Period. That's why I feel like there has to be some type of systematic kind of way that they operate out there, that they're used to this type of unethical conduct happening. And we've already been, made well aware that it is a practice of law enforcement being unethical in Mexico. They take a lot of payments. If you don't want to get arrested in Mexico, then you have to pay a significant amount of money to stay out of jail, basically. And something happened unethical in this case. You can just tell, because why was the Cabo Six allowed to leave when there was a death? And the other question you have to ask, Nazir, when on his live, he indicated that this doctor identified a knot on Shanquella's head. That was a huge indicator to show that there was an injury beyond this false lie of alcohol poisoning. Also, the fact that she was so close to Shanquella, she was giving her CPR allegedly. I don't even believe that's true, because if we go at what my opinion is, and my opinion is Shanquella was already deceased by the time the doctor came. Okay, but if we go with her lie, it makes her even more unethical, because if she's administering CPR, she's close enough to Shanquella's person to smell if she had alcohol on her person, emanating from her person. And clearly, based upon the death certificate that we've seen in the past, there was no alcohol in Shanquella's body. So not smelling the alcohol, that doesn't corroborate this false alcohol poisoning story. The knot on Shanquella's head, which shows there was some more severe injury to Shanquella than just alcohol poisoning. And she overlooked it all. And she didn't even write this information down in the police report or give the statement about the injury or in her report. There's no mention of bruises on Shanquella. There's no mention of a knot. To me, that just screams, in my opinion, unethical, immoral conduct that happened. My question is, how much was she paid? How much did it cost her to overlook her ethical conduct to get Shanquella to the hospital, to administer the wrong medical treatment? She knew good and well Shanquella did not need CPR. She needed to get to a hospital immediately. She had injuries that showed that. Also, after Shanquella's death, she retweeted this. Carol retweeted, "The first step to healing is to recognize that you are hurt and that you are vulnerable. It's okay. It's brave to ask for help." Now, that right there is pretty deep. That right there sounds like somebody who is going down a pipe of sadness. Hurt, vulnerable, ask for help. That's somebody who's feeling depression, sadness. Something is really weighing on this person's mind when you read that. What is she hurt about? What is she feeling vulnerable about? What does she need to ask help for? Now she kind of is starting to catch up with her that something's not right. Okay. She has since made her Twitter private, as you can see here now. This is how her Twitter looks now. She has made it private so that we can't go back on her Twitter anymore, unfortunately, because so many people started harassing this woman. They were commenting all on her tweets, y'all, coming for her, which as they should. I'm just saying. Okay, as they should. As they should. Because she just failed Shanquella in so many ways. Okay. But I wanted to take a look at some posts that she did before Shanquella passed away. And I think these are relevant because they can kind of give us a perspective of who she is. Because a lot of times when you look at how people post, you can get an idea of what their thought process is, what are their beliefs, things they are in agreement with. So it's interesting to see how she was before Shanquella's death. So before Shanquella's death, she was posting on October 24th, "The thirst for greatness is quenched with work and dedication." That sounds like someone who is very ambitious. She thirsts for greatness. She thirsts for excellence. That is someone who is very motivated, someone who is ambitious, who's looking for more in life, more success. This is a woman who is very goal-oriented. A woman that looks for excellence, which is contrary to how she behaved on the date that Shanquella lost her life. Nobody was there for Shanquella that day. Shanquella had no one. That is so sad, to be thousands and thousands of miles away from the people that love you, and you have no one there advocating for you. No one. Not even this doctor who has been in the profession since 2016. Shameful. Shameful. On October 22nd, she says, "On my day off, I want to take the opportunity to do this and this and this." She falls asleep all afternoon. That to me sounds like someone who's overworked. This woman is overworked. She's exhausted. to the point where she can't even enjoy a time off. And we can see that based upon her LinkedIn. She's working 3 different jobs. So she's overworked. Clearly, she doesn't even have time to sit and rest. So the other question I ask is, was she competent during the time that she was treating Shanquella? Or was she so mentally fatigued and overworked that she wasn't even thinking rationally? Because you got to ask some questions, because this woman completely failed all expertise in this case. I mean, she was giving Shanquella CPR when Shanquella needed to get to the ER. She needed to get to an emergency room. And she knew this. She knew this because she told the Cabo 6 this, and she overrode her medical expertise and listened to some laypersons who don't know what they're talking about. She listened. There's so many failures in this case. Number one, she overrode her expertise in identifying that this was an emergency situation that needed more than just an IV and CPR. She listened to she failed her ethical duty as a doctor who has been employed as a doctor since 2016. She overlooked all of that to listen to individuals who lack any form of medical expertise. Second, she overlooked the observations, the external observations on Shanquella, the fact that Shanquella had a knot on her head, which can be an indicator that Shanquella had severe injuries, has sustained injuries contrary to the lie of medical or alcohol poisoning. Number three, the fact that she was allegedly so close to Shanquella's persons when she was administering the CPR, she could have already recognized there was a lack of smell of alcohol. If someone has alcohol poisoning, if they're drinking a lot of alcohol, alcohol will be emanating from that body, the person's body. You could smell it on them. And especially if you're doing CPR, because you got to get close up and personal with someone when you're doing CPR. So the fact that she's that close and, in my opinion, didn't smell alcohol, that should have been an indicator that these individuals were lying. Another failure that she did, she failed to write in her medical report or with the officers, or report to the officers that she identified a knot on Shanquella's head. That shows a level of dishonesty, hiding something. So my question at the end of the day is, how much did they pay you, Miss Dr. Carol? How much did you sell your soul for? How much was it worth? Because there's something shady about this whole case. None of it makes sense. And when it doesn't make sense is because there is more to the story. On October 28th, she says, if it hurts, it's that you're growing, and that even if you don't believe it, it's good. That's what she retweeted on 27th or the 28th. This was a day before this tragedy. If it hurts, it's that you're growing, and that even if you don't believe it, it's good. So this is the type of person, she's willing to overwork herself, make all these sacrifices, even if she's unhappy and she is truly fatigue inside, and to the point where she's unhappy, but she's willing to overlook that and sacrifice all that for accomplishing her goal. That's kind of my opinion, but you can interpret it any way you want, because everybody is subject to their own opinions in this, and there's so many ways to interpret these tweets. But that's just my opinion of what I'm getting from those tweets. But even looking at this woman, looking at some of the patterns that we see in her level of employment, number one, the fact that she doesn't keep jobs too long, that's a huge red flag. My question is, does she have other history of unethical conduct? Because these jobs aren't keeping her. She's not there that long. There's an issue with her. Any employer will tell you when they're looking at someone's resume, they do look at the level and the time period of how long these people are keeping their jobs and the pattern in which their periods of time they were sustaining jobs. So if they have a pattern of just 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 2 year, 1 year, 3 year, they're going to see something's not right with this person. They can't stay at a job. I don't know if I want to hire this person because I don't know how long they're going to be here. So that's a question that I have. There's a lot of questions I have about Carolina. Very shady. But there was a YouTuber online. Her name is Danny, and then also credit to what's his name, Martin Lewis. He reposted it, but I liked how he reposted it, so I'm going to play his clip of it, where the YouTuber interviewed Dr. Valero, a forensic medical expert, and this expert was identifying some of the key failures that this doctor did. And I think it's pretty important to listen to this, because you have an expert, a criminal investigator, who is telling you even he himself can identify the unethical, gross negligence that this woman has done. Something, we're missing a piece of the puzzle, y'all. And you know, we over here speculating and making our opinions, but there's something deeper and unethical that happened in this case. And my question at the end of this whole thing is, how much did they pay you, Dr. Carolina? How much did they pay you? How much was your soul worth it? Because something's not right. But let's look at it. Let's listen to an expert tell us what are all the failures that Dr. Carolina did in this tragedy.
He's saying right here, there was an error on behalf of the doctor, Carolina. She was obligated to take her out of there and get her medical treatment, right? Or get her a diagnosis, but she failed in this area. Dr. Carolina, by medical duty, should have made the call to have Shanquella transported to a medical facility. Take responsibility and that ownership, because you don't need their permission to give her medical help or even transport. This is what would be malpractice. You are obligated to act in basically in good faith, regardless of what the friends wanted or not, or what they permitted. She did not give their consent. If it was a parent, it would have been a different story. But this is just friends.
Basically, everyone fell Shanquella.
Oh, goodness, guys. Y'all know I be messing up with this echo. Jeez. But I'll replay it if you got, because the sound was kind of weird. So I'll replay it. But essentially, if you heard him talk, he had the translator. But essentially, the key things that he talked about is that, number one, and I'll play it again, guys, so I can mute it so you can actually hear it. Sorry about that. I always forget to mute my mic. But anywho, number one, she owed a fiduciary duty. She owed a duty to Shanquella, to take Shanquella to the doctor, to the hospital. There is no way that any doctor with her level of experience, her qualifications, would listen to a lay person who lacks any medical background to tell them how to do their job. She owed Shanquella a duty. She failed that. And in America, if she did that, she would have been sued for malpractice and lost her ability to work as a doctor, period, going forward, period. But you can see the contrast to how things operate in America and how things operate in Mexico. In Mexico, all they get is possibly a fine. And if we're lucky, jail time. But that's probably not what's going to happen. She's probably going to just get a fine. And she's already continually working her jobs, guys. She's continuing to work at these jobs as if nothing ever happened. In America, if that happened, she would have been laid off. She would have been put on administrative leave if that happened in America. Another thing he said is that she committed medical malpractice, which is true. That's what we would have saw and we would have identified it as in America. But you can see how laxed. There is allegations that she's under investigation, but you can see, based upon some of the rumors floating around, y'all, is that more than likely, all she could really get is a fine for this. That's just, I can't believe it. But we shall wait and see what really happens with this. But the fact that she's still employed is what I find quite disturbing. So I'm going to play this again and I'm going to mute it this time. Sorry.
Carolina, she was obligated to take her out of there and get her medical treatment, right? Or get her a diagnosis, but she failed in this area. Dr. Carolina, by medical duty, should have made the call to have Shanquella transported to a medical facility. Take that responsibility and that ownership, because you don't need their permission to give her medical help or even transport her. This is what would be malpractice. You are obligated to act in basically in good faith, regardless of what the friends wanted or not, or what they permitted. She did not need their consent. If it was a parent, it would have been a different story, but this is just friends.
Basically, everyone.
And we didn't need we didn't even need an expert to tell us that, because we already knew that. We did not need that. We didn't need to hear that from an expert. It's common sense. It's common sense to any person who can see this case. It's obvious. It was obvious. If it's that obvious to us as just individuals who are not in the medical field, then it was obvious to her. So it sounds very fishy. It sounds like a cover-up and unethical conduct. So the question is, either how much was she paid, or who pressured her to cover this whole tragedy up, to keep the pristine, clean image of Mexico so that they did not deter more tourists from coming there. That is the question that we have. So sad, so heartbreaking, so disturbing that this woman, although beautiful on the outside, is dark and hollow on the inside, who didn't even care about Shanquella. It's terrifying. Very terrifying. So let's see what you guys have to say. I'm sorry, guys, that I had to keep doing this over. Hi, Mama. Thank you for being patient. I really want to give you a shout out, girl, because I saw you on my prior live and you the one kept coming. You came back again. So thank you, love, for watching it once again, my love. I really appreciate you coming back. She said, we'll have to rewatch this. I'm exhausted. Love and respect. All right. I love and respect you too, sweetie. And Valerie says, is it possible that Shanquella's family could conceivably sue everyone and everything involved, including yes, it is. Is it still echoing, Valerie? Is it? Am I echoing, guys? Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Anyway, is it possible that Shanquella's family can conceivably sue everyone and everything involved, including the Airbnb and the Mexico City, for wrongful death? Is that a thing? Yeah, they can. It's just they're going to have to follow the customs and how they operate in Mexico. That's how they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to figure out how Mexico does it. But yeah, they can. We actually have a case like that happening right now. There's about 3 people that are joined a lawsuit that are suing Airbnb because there was an Airbnb. Well, that's probably, no, not really, because Airbnb is not really a Mexico entity. It's kind of interesting how they're doing it. That's a good question, Valerie. We'll have to see, because it's kind of interesting how, because that crosses over into Mexico. So they'll have to see. They're looking into it. I know they're looking into hiring an attorney. It depends on how Mexico operates out there, but they'd have to look at the laws in Mexico. And if there's any laws that permit them to do that. I know in America they could. They can sue Airbnb. Yes, they can, because there's actually 3 families that are suing Airbnb in Mexico, because in Mexico, they died from carbon monoxide. They died from carbon monoxide, and now they're suing the Airbnb related to those particular Airbnbs in Mexico. So yes, I'm hoping that they're looking into that and they do take action, I'm shocked they haven't announced anything, but they need to get on that because this woman and everybody else needs to be sued. Okay. Thank you, Benjamin. Yay. Thank you for letting me know you can hear me because my sound, guys, I'm still working on all this stuff, y'all. Yeah, she gets a slap on the wrist, just a fine. She's still employed, y'all. Still employed. Yes, it is very tragic, guys. So this is the woman right here on the screen. This was the woman that failed Shanquella. Let me know what you guys think about this tragedy. It's so heartbreaking the more we hear about this story. Have a wonderful night.